Hello, everyone. Just looking to see if we've got all of our members present. I see Mr. White, Ms. Willis, Ms. Markovich, and I think Mr. Hindle is the only one we're still waiting for. Well, I think we can start with the opening remarks. So, to start, bienvenue à tous et bonne soirée. Welcome everyone to this online hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Ottawa. Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial tribunal that's appointed by City Council to make certain types of decisions under applications, certain types of applications under the Planning Act. So the Planning Act does provide opportunities for consents and for minor variances, as well as permissions and a few other types of authorities that are less common for this committee to deal with. My name is Anne Tremblay, and I will be chairing this hearing this evening. And with me are my fellow panel members, Mr. Colin White, Ms. Kathleen Willis, Ms. Julia Markovich, and Mr. Scott Hindle. Also with us tonight, I'd like to take note that we are always well supported by committee staff. So we have Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Michel Bellemare. Thank you for being here. We also have coordinators, Cheryl Williams, Emily Manette, and Mandy Nguyen, who I understand that panel one may actually still be underway with some remaining items on their agenda. So it's quite possible that we might not have our usual full complement of the coordinators. I also would like to acknowledge that we have two of the city's urban planners with us this evening. As always, Mr. Cameron Hodgins and Ms. Lucy Ramirez. Please take note that this is video conferenced and is being live streamed on YouTube. You can always see an archived version of this video, as well as an agenda for tonight's evening. If you simply go to the city's website and look for the hearing material, it should be archived under the Committee of Adjustment. Before we begin, there's a number of issues that we'd like to recognize that do occur in terms of development associated to development within the city. The Committees of Adjustments mandate, however, is really quite narrow in comparison. So the kinds of things that we cannot discuss are aspects related to the proposal that are not actually before us as part of an application. So for example, if the application is really limited to something like lot width and lot area, then those are essentially the minor variances that we have to focus on evaluating the 4 tests under the Planning Act. We also don't deal with any noise, pollution, property maintenance, or property values issues, prosecution for illegal construction. We will not entertain any kind of negative comments concerning neighbors, agents, or applicants. And finally, at times during the course of discussion, it becomes evident that an additional minor variance or greater relief to minor variance may be required. If that's the case, then we need to adjourn on that item and allow for a recirculation of the application. As part of the statutory public notification requirements, each applicant is required to post a sign on the property and file a statutory declaration confirming the sign posting. And that declaration has to be either already submitted to us to hear the application, or we can do an oath or a solemn oath to allow that to happen. So this evening, my understanding is we have one received, so we will essentially be administering the oath to most of the applicants or agents for the evening. With respect to quorum, it happens on occasion that we lose members due to technology, glitches, what have you. If we lose quorum, and only if we lose quorum, we're 5 tonight, which means we would have to lose 3 of the 5 in order to lose our quorum. If that happens, we'll try and give technology a few moments to resolve itself. And if that can't happen, then we will simply take the remaining items and put them on to the agenda of the next meeting of this panel. So in terms of process, there is an agenda that is posted with this evening's hearing. So the chair, and the other one is that we will take the opportunity to ask clarifying questions. And after all of that is done, last name and your municipal address. Once you've made once all of that is done, we then will deliberate on the merits of the application, verbal decision, either to grant the application or to refuse the applications. Sometimes that happens. And in fact, there's a number tonight that we're going to. But in all cases, the committee will issue within 10 days of the hearing a formal period during which time the decision can be appealed to the local planning appeal tribunal for a fee. And that concludes my opening remarks. Let's go to item. And I don't believe I see anyone with any conflicts this evening, so that's great. I also understand we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. So I need a motion to approve the minutes for March 3rd. Motion, Mr. Hindle, seconded by Mr. White. Also need someone to move there. Much better, but we can't hear you. You're actually doing all this within your vehicle, so I don't know.
Hey, that's not fair.
I beg your pardon?
It was very expensive to rent this vehicle. I was going to get a hotel suite, but I had to settle for the vehicle.
Okay. Well, it seems to be working for you. All right. So you're aware that there is a request for an adjournment on your application due to a requirement for additional variances. Is that correct?
No, I'm not aware of that. I read through them. I didn't see additional variances. I did not see that.
An adjournment. Mr. Hodgins, did you want to just give a brief overview of your reasons? Thank you.
Yes.
Violation fee, however, and I don't ever know that off the top of my head. So if either Mr. Belmar or Ms. Williams can give us what that number would be.
That'd be great. I'd really appreciate it. Who may I contact to further explain to me what I need to get you folks?
Committee coordinator, that would be your main contact for any further information.
Okay, I'll try and figure out who that is. No problem.
Right.
I'll get it.
I'm sure committee staff will be able to help you with that. No issues at all. So I just for the record, though, I need to make a call out to the public. Anyone want to speak either for or against this request for adjournment sine die? I don't have anybody on. It needs your concurrence. Are we adjourning? All those in favor of adjourning to adjourning sine die on this application? All right, so it is unanimous, Mr. Webster. So I guess we'll see you probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The next application that we've got for adjournment is actually 39 Laval Street. We've got a consent and a minor variance on this application. I'm looking for Mr. Hume. Good evening, Mr. Hume.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
All right, are you aware, Mr. Hume, of the request for an adjournment?
I am, Madam Chair.
And the request on this is a sine die adjournment?
Madam Chair, in most cases, I would agree with Ms. Ramirez, but in this case, because it's a unique situation, it's dealing with as-built conditions. I don't think an adjournment of the consent and the minor variance on the pole position is required, because those aren't going to change as a result of the consideration of a variance to an as-built condition. We will apply for the required variance, but the owner's in the midst of refinancing his property. This getting a consent and creating that PIN is critical to him in putting permanent financing And a delay of a month or more is onerous to him. So he would like to, and we would like to ask you to consider to hear this application today on the basis that it deals with as-built conditions. If this were the normal, of course, and it wasn't as-built, I think it warrants committee's consideration today.
Mr. Hume, you're aware though that if we did proceed with that, we would have to add the 3 for access in favor of the owner of part 1. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. So in those cases, it's interesting. We know that minor variances require having a recirculation when it comes to amending the application. But in this case, we're also amending the consent application to introduce the addition of an easement. So I'm just looking for some guidance here. I would think that just, you know, and to be truly cautious that we would want to recirculate it to reflect that easement as well. So it wouldn't be necessarily just a minor variance, it might be the consent too. But I need your, I just need your confirmation of that or correction of that.
Through you, Madam Chair, I do know of other cases where easements were added at the committee hearing for consents. I don't know if this is the preferred practice. I know that I do also know that we have adjourned an application to add access easements. So I've seen both ways been done.
All right, okay. So I'm going to actually ask Mr. Belmar whether or not Mr. Belmar has any insight on whether this would actually require from the committee a recirculation to if we were to add to a consent application the need for an easement.
Madam Chair, I believe it's open to the panel to go either way. I believe that there is precedent for both situations, as Ms. Ramirez has outlined. And so it's up to the panel to decide in this case.
Okay, all right. I wasn't sure if it was as cut and dry as the minor variance case. So, all right. So in that case, Mr. Hume, we do have the flexibility here.
So, Madam Chair, I read that in Ms. Ramirez's comments, and I went back to the application that we filed, and it was clearly indicated on our documentation that we filed that we were seeking an easement on part 3 to allow part 1 to access the secondary dwelling unit on the side. So I don't have in front of me the notice, but I went back to the application, and it was clear in our application documentation.
It unfortunately did not make it to the notice. I've got it in front of me. And that's so typically because it didn't make it to the notice, it didn't get public circulation, truly that added part. So I too have seen it both ways. I will be honest with you, I've seen it more often than not that we do a recirculation on the consent as well, just to be fully transparent to the public. So I guess I'm going to entertain some thoughts from the committee members at this point. And I see, Mr. White, you've got your hand up, so the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wonder if I could just get some clarification on the nature of that easement and what the requirements are for the easement.
Who are you looking for an answer from, Mr. Hume or Ms. Ramirez?
Staff, please.
Okay. All right, Ms. Ramirez, please.
Through you, Madam Chair, there is the entrance to the secondary dwelling that is located in the basement, and it's accessed via the driveway, and that is that secondary dwelling for that for the 39 Laval. And so the easement is to provide access over lands that will then be 41 Laval for the benefit of 39 Laval.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really don't see any critical public interest that might be compromised if we were to approve this with the addition, the consent application with the addition of the easement, notwithstanding that it wasn't mentioned in the notice, as Mr. Hume has indicated, it appears that it was the application was made for that easement as part of the submission. So I'm predisposed to not being concerned about the addition of the easement, and allowing us to consider the bigger question of is it appropriate to deal with the consent tonight and condition the approval of the minor variances as part of that consent approval. I'm prepared to consider that.
All right, other thoughts from the committee? Ms. Willis?
Just a question about the financing situation for Mr. Hume. If this becomes a condition and you run the risk of not getting the variance approved in future, how does that help you with moving your application forward if you don't actually have the consent until you've cleared the variance as well?
Well, you're exactly right. I'm going to say, if you're going to condition the application to require the minor variance, then we're better off for you to adjourn it, and we'll file for the application, and we'll come back at the next available hearing, because we won't be able to we won't be able to make an application, finalize that application with consents. The time frame actually gets longer if you condition it, and it doesn't result in what the client needs, which is he needs that pin, right? He needs that individual pin for the front unit. So if you're going to if the basis upon which you consider this application is a condition, then we would regretfully have to ask you to adjourn that, because that's not going to get us to where we need to be.
Right, then, Mr. Hume, I think I've heard enough to be convinced that truly that's the more prudent approach. It gives the opportunity to fix a number of things all at the same time. We can fix the notice on the consent, we can fix the notice, we can add the minor variance for that's required for the application. So if I'm looking to see support from support or opposition, as you would, from the committee members before I go to the public, are you guys, is that something you would do? All right, Ms. Willis.
I'm not quite clear what Mr. Hume is hoping for here. Are you hoping that we will proceed with the variance on the pole width at this time and just not deal with the front yard until some future date?
That's what I asked you for. Yes, we'll make an application to do that, but we were asking that you consider the consent and the minor variance for the pole, and that we would then be able to move forward on that. We'd make an application for the minor variance for the as-built front yard setback and come back before you.
I'm not sure of our position as to whether or not we're in a position to be able to grant the severance when it's not in compliance, even with it being an existing condition. I don't know whether we've committed to do that. Perhaps somebody else can comment.
Right.
Madam Chair, is there any question here of the potential interpretation of legal non-conforming rights with respect to that additional, what's proposed to be an additional variance? If it's relating to an existing condition?
Ms. Ramirez, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think Ms. Ramirez would probably be. Or a lawyer if we have one in the room.
The minor variance would bring the property into compliance with the zoning bylaw, and for whether you attach it as a condition of the provisional consent or whether you adjourn the application, there should be a condition attached to it that there needs to be that minor variance to bring the property into compliance with the zoning bylaw. Just because it's built as is right now doesn't mean that they have the legal right to what was constructed.
Sorry, I missed.
Muddier and muddier.
Well, the building's built, right? The building's built and it's not going to change. It's just a question of process. And we're looking for an expeditious process to allow the owner to refinance. and then to be able to clean up the property, right? Because it's not going to go away because it's built, right? And it's got tenants in it. It's got occupancy permits. So.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hume. Ms. Ramirez, your hand is still up. Did you have
Yeah,
additional comments?
Through you, Madam Chair, we have seen this before on variances that were required for total interior side yard setback. And what we advise those applicants to do is to come in with a minor variance at the same time as the consent when we discovered that there was non-compliance with our zoning bylaw.
Yes, I would agree with you there, Ms. Ramirez. Thank you. All right, I'm going to go out to the public for a moment. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak either for or against an adjournment request on either the consent or the minor variance? All right, committee members, I think we've talked a lot about this. I know we're all trying to do our best to help out here, but it doesn't seem there is on an adjournment sine die for the consent application and the minor variance and the minor variance sine die, Mr. Hume.
Okay, so Madam Chairman, I guess I'm interested to know when sine die is without time, right? I mean, it's without a period of time. Like, can at least the committee give me some indication when I can get back on the agenda?
Earliest date for any new recirculation of an application.
What date was that?
It would be the notice for that goes out on April 19th. And so that's only a few weeks away. So it'll be contingent on when all of the information is submitted so that we can have a complete application ready for a hearing. So it would be
As you know, a variance of this nature is the submission of an up-to-date survey of the property. In this case, the only survey, legal survey information that I can see was provided was an excerpt of a portion of a reference plan of some sort. It doesn't have any surveyor's certification on it, but notwithstanding that, it also does not include any reference to the location of existing buildings on the lot. And in my view, that is critical in a situation where we're dealing with variance of this nature, in that we don't have the only plan that's submitted with dimensions to the existing development and to the proposed addition to the building indicates dimension information, which is only identified as being approximate, certainly not based on any legal survey information, which I think is critical if we are to issue a minor variance of this nature. So in my view, I think we need to have the application based on legal survey information as opposed to the simple sketch that we were provided, which is not based on any survey information that's been submitted along with the application.
All right, thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Hodgins, I guess we're looking to you. We've run across this before where there was some concerns about the absence of an accurate and up-to-date survey plan in order to really be able to confirm dimensions on a lot and the exact nature of what the minor variance requirement would be. Can you tell us, did you have access to a survey plan? Did you?
The only survey I had access.
Sorry, Mr. King, I'm actually speaking with Mr. Hodgins.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, unfortunately, we did not have access to a more detailed survey. We would just have the site plan and that previous subdivision plan available during our review.
All right, Mr. Hodgins, so you're comfortable though that the minor variances are accurate? The requested ones that we have here are, we're not going to be discussing any additional variances to those variances in the future?
Through you, Madam Chair, in all honesty, I was unaware that the dimensions were approximate. I think there is a risk that if we don't have certainty that it could come back. With that in mind, I would also note that this is a permitted projection and not a principal dwelling or a principal structure. So there is a risk that it could go to the building permit stage, and at that point, they could ask for more confirmation on the lot lines. So in my opinion, I would likely leave it up to the committee and the applicant's discretion there, given that we don't have a confirmed survey dimension.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hodgins. Mr. King, you were going to say something?
I was going to point out that the dimensions for the overall lot are accurate. They're taken from the 1985 survey that was sent out for the subdivision. The position of the building is based on my own measurements, so I agree that they could be off by a few inches.
Mr. King, I think if you look at the application package, you'll note that there is a requirement for an up-to-date and accurate survey as part of any filings. We have adjourned applications in the past for not having had that information and not being able to confirm that the minor variances are in fact on the basis of that accurate information. So in this case, though, Mr. Hodgins, I think, feels that because it's a permitted protection, we're not talking about the foundation itself or in terms of the impact on side yards, that kind of thing. So maybe there's a little bit of wiggle room here and flexibility. Need to hear from other members of the committee. Are you either in support of stepping this down and being heard, or would you prefer that we get confirmation from our planning staff that in fact the minor variances are correct? Ms. Willis.
I don't have a problem dealing with the application tonight as long as the applicant is aware that there is some risk and that it could end up that what he asked for is out by a small amount. If he's being conservative in his measurements, then it likely will all fall into place. But there is, as Mr. Hodgins has said, he might be back before us another time. I don't have a problem dealing with it on that basis tonight.
All right, thank you, Ms. Willis. Anyone else? All in favor of stepping it down to later? Just need a show of hands so I know who wants to hear this.
Sorry, Madam
right.
Chair, what was the motion?
It's not a motion. I'm just actually just trying to get an idea of how many would like to step the application down and to be heard later, as opposed to an adjournment. All right.
Madam Chair.
You would prefer to have the survey information. Okay.
Yes.
So I think where we have it, though, folks, is that 3 of you are in favor of in fact stepping it down and hearing it later. I agree with Mr. White. I think that to be consistent, we should be asking for exactly what's very clearly in the application requirements, which is an up-to-date and accurate survey. So that said, though, it looks like the majority of the committee would like to step down and hear it. So, Mr. King, we are going to hear from you a little bit later, I think. In fact, if I'm looking at the order of things at this point, if we're going to hear this application, folks, then we can hear from Mr. King right now, because he would be the next application in line and the first fast track application we have for the evening. So with that, then, we're going to not ask for a presentation, but Mr. King, I do have to get an oath or solemn declaration from you because we did not get the stat deck. So do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted first at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days before the hearing and that the sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I affirm that to be true.
All right, thank you. So we're not asking for a presentation. So committee members, questions for Mr. King on this application? Anything? And I think I've just before, while you're thinking about it, I'm going to read, there's a housekeeping item that we have, Mr. King, just to make corrections. So on the notice, we're going to change some wording to read as follows. I'll read it out for the record, and then if you could just confirm for me whether or not that's correct. The owner requires the authority of the committee for a minor variance from zoning bylaw to permit a 4.38 meter projection into the required rear yard, 3.12 meter setback, whereas the bylaw permits a covered porch to project 2 meters into the rear yard, or a minimum rear yard setback of 5.5. So, is that correct?
That is
right?
correct.
All right, and Mr. Hodgins, did I get that right? It seemed a little confusing to me, but I just want to make sure I did get that right.
It was confusing to me also, but Mr. Hodgins explained to me that it is correct.
All right, okay, well. All right, so that said, back to the committee members. Anybody have any questions for Mr. King? Mr. Hindle.
So, Mr. King, I saw in the revised plans posted online, it looks like there's been some changes to, I think it's the roof line is supposed to be clear now rather than an asphalt shingle.
So it was always clear, not asphalt shingles. The change to the roof line is there's no eaves anymore. The eaves were projecting out over the sides of the deck and increasing the footprint. So we've removed the eaves.
Oh, okay, so you've just cut it back to fit within the original circulation. I see.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so I have no speakers on deck that have registered. So for just to make a call out there, is there anyone from the audience that would like to speak either for or against on this application? Just need to raise your hand to come forward. All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So with that, all those in favor.
Madam Chair, there is Mr. Sretek.
Find on McCurdy. We're on McCurdy. Yeah, I think this is that application is for the Rothsay derived one. So we'll come back to that, where that's an application for which we'll be asking a presentation. So it'll be a little bit later in the lineup of items to be discussed. Mr. White.
Madam Chair, just before you ask for the vote, I'm not supportive of this application. Just for the record, I'm not supportive of this application. Number one on the basis that we're not doing it on the basis of accurate survey information, and secondly, in my view, the application, the variance requested is not minor, doesn't respect the general purpose and intent of the provisions of the zoning bylaw, as opposed to the general purpose and intent of the overall zoning. And on that basis, I'm dissenting on the application.
All right, thank you, Mr. White. Is there anyone else who'd like to make some comments before we go to a vote? All right, then, all those in favor of the application? All right, so I think I'm going to side with Mr. White again for the record. So the application is granted because the majority of the panel is in support. So you have, there's Ms. Willis, Mr. Hindle, and Ms. Markovich in support of the application, and 2 dissents, both Mr. White and myself. So Mr. King, your application is approved.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next application that we're going to for this evening is application number 491 Varley Drive. I'm looking for Mr. Giovannitti. Come on forward, Mr. Giovannitti. Can you put your video on?
Hello, it's the first time for me using a Zoom meeting.
Okay, can you, is there a way that you could
Is it the
turn your
share screen?
I beg your pardon?
Is it the share video? Okay, here I am. Okay.
There you go. Perfect. Well done. Okay. All right. So the committee, before we get into the application, again, no staff deck for this application is also. I'm going to read something to you, and then I'll need you to respond. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was first posted on the property to which the application applies, that it was posted for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that the sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I affirm that to be true. I actually installed it myself.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Okay, we do not need a presentation from you this evening, so I'm going to open it up to members of the panel for any questions that they may have. Anyone? No? Okay. In which case, let me just have a check here to make sure. All right, so I don't have anyone on deck for this application either. So is there anyone in the audience who hasn't registered to speak but would still like to address the committee, either for or against this application? Now's your chance. You just need to raise your hand. All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. Okay, it's a pretty quick application so far. So members of the committee, we can go to a vote unless anybody has any comments. So all those in favor? All right, for the record, the application is granted unanimously. Thank you very much. I don't believe there's anything else that we need to discuss with you this evening. So good luck with your project.
Thank you.
All right then.
Bye.
Bye now. All right, next application up is for 120 and 80 Hurst Way. Looking for the agent, Ms. Krista Libman. Good evening.
Hello, good evening.
So we do have a stat deck from you, so thank you for that. We don't need to go through that formality. We're not going to be requesting a presentation from you. The committee has had a chance to go through this. Is there anyone who has any questions about the application for Ms. Libman on this? Mr. Hindle.
So, Ms. Libman, I understand that the cash in lieu condition has been dealt with. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, so it's no longer required?
that's right. It was paid through the plan of subdivision. Our land was dedicated in 1981.
Okay, thank you.
All right, okay. And that's going to be duly noted for the record as well, should the application be approved. So don't believe there's any other questions. I'm not seeing anybody come forward. I also don't have anybody registered to speak. So I am going to open it up though to anyone in the audience who may have an interest in this application, either for or against. You have an opportunity to speak to the committee. Yes, I see Mr. Ogden from the Mississippi Conservation Authority. Come on forward. Sorry, my mistake.
That's okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to highlight that the property is regulated by a Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority, and should any future development occur on either of the severed or retained lot, it would require a permit, and the Conservation Authority would be involved in the site plan approval process.
All right, thank you very much. That's good to know. Anything else or anyone else in the audience have information to offer or have any concerns or support? Not seeing anyone else come forward. All right, committee, then I think we can go to vote. All those in favor of the application? All right, for the record, Ms. Libman, the application is unanimously granted. So
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Bye now. All right, we're going to go to application number 10 for 138 Carillon Street. Mr. Hume, hoping you're still with us. All right, so I think we have to go through this because we don't have a stat deck for this application.
Okay.
So do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that the sign was at all times clearly visible and legible? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear and affirm it to be true.
Okay. All right, in this case, we're not requiring a presentation on this application. I don't believe there's any housekeeping items either that need to be discussed? Don't see anything. Excellent. Committee members, any questions for Mr. Hume on this application? Ms. Willis?
Yes, Mr. Hume, I just am curious about whether or not your client might have some intent to sever at some point in future, and if so, whether your client would recognize that there's a possibility of a variance being required, well, a variance would be required for the pole width, and then at such time as this is all done and built, that the severance could be potentially, there's some risk that it could be turned down because the variance won't be granted.
Absolutely, he is aware of that, the potential because of the reduced side yard setbacks. So the person who's developing this property was also before the committee on Spadina Avenue earlier this year. Very similar circumstances. Is well aware of how challenging and maybe impossible to sever the property because of the way it's serviced, and it won't be able to meet city's standards potentially for that servicing requirement. Unlike Laval, which was able to maintain its separation and all of those requirements, he is fully aware of that.
Okay, so he's prepared to take that risk, obviously.
Yes, he is.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a question on that comment from the department concerning the servicing. My understanding that the services are going to be there, and the issue with respect to the variance on the width of the flagpole is with respect to the ongoing maintenance of the potential maintenance issues with the servicing. I mean, obviously they will or have been or will be installed, which means that there have to be access to them. I'm not clear on what the issue is with respect to services down the road and the width of that flagpole.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, I would say that we have certain standards that are in effect for our servicing. You need to be a certain distance from the foundation. In fact, I think it is a meter, and you have to have a certain width for the trench to have those services, and you need separation between the services. And so sometimes there are those services can be accommodated in a shallower width of a pole, but we ask for 3 meters because it is more accommodating for all those services to be contained in that pole width. And so I haven't seen a servicing plan for how the owner intends to service these lots, but a condition, we require separate services as a condition of consent. And I don't see how they would be able to provide those separate services and meet all of our city standards with that reduced pole width.
Follow up, Madam Chair. Does that mean, and maybe perhaps Mr. Hume can answer this question, does that mean that the services are not necessarily going to be extended through the flagpole? They're going to be accommodated in some other way? So
Ms. Ramirez is correct. The services are required to be separated. And I don't have a servicing drawing in front of me. So what I would say to you is potentially the front unit could be serviced off of the street, and the rear unit would have to run along the side yard. And it may not be possible to sever that flagpole to accommodate the services in a manner in which the city would deem appropriate for separate ownership. So that's I think that's where they're going. Now, there are circumstances, and the engineering department has circumstances on which the standards can be accommodated if you provide geotechnical reports and other technical supporting documentation, but that's done at the building permit stages. So it may not be possible in the end to be able to sever the rear unit off and have services, individual services at city standards for separate ownership.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions about the minor variance application? Nope. All right. I don't see anyone registered to speak on this application. So I'll just make a call out if anyone in the audience has an interest in this application, either for or against. Your opportunity is now to come forward and speak to the committee. Just raise your hand and we can acknowledge you and bring you in. All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So with that then, committee members, it looks like we're ready to go to a vote on this. So all those in favor of the application? All right, for the record, Mr. Hume, the application is unanimously granted. So I don't see anything here of particular concern that we need to talk about. I do note that there were a couple of letters of opposition that came in. You're aware of that?
I am, Madam Chair.
All right. Just out of curiosity, what kind of consultation did occur on this application then?
So what we did is we took, before we made the application, or as we were making the application, we took the plans, we attached an introductory letter, and they were circulated up and down the street to the neighbors on either side, and on either side of the street, up and down. And in fact, we did get two people who contacted us directly to inquire about the property, and we provided them with information. So.
There wasn't any revisions that came out of your proposal that based on that consultation. Just curious.
Yes, actually, there was the original consultation called for, or the original design had a parking space to the east of the site, and based on that consultation and discussion with the owner, we were grappling with the ability to provide a parking space or to provide soft landscaping, which was one of the things, and a tree, which was one of the things that one of the individuals who commented to us had indicated that softening up that landscape would be well appreciated, because it is right now the two front yard, I think it's front yard parking, at least one of the spaces is front yard parking, and a lot of hardscape. So we engaged a landscape architect to develop a planting program for both the front and the rear. And we've provided that to Ms. Ramirez and to the committee to demonstrate that we are changing that front landscaping to introduce more soft surfaces and actually a tree.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Hume, because I mean, the fact that nobody did come forward, that's telling that there was an effort made, and obviously there was some success that came out of that. So that's always good to hear from the committee standpoint. So thank you for that overview. All right. With that, it is granted. So good luck with this project.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
All right, the next application that we have is number 11, 405 Billings Avenue, and I'm looking for Mr. Falsetto. Good evening. I believe you're on mute. We can't hear you. No. We can't hear you. No. still not hearing you. So Mr. Falsetto, there's a couple of options that we have if we can't get your microphone to work. We can allow you to phone in. There is a number that's available in order to do that, and you can stay on video, and then we can maybe speak with you through the phone line. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to do that. And what I'm going to suggest, if that's okay, is that I will go to the next application, then come back to you. If we can get you to join in, or either resolve the microphone issue or call in through the phone line. So we'll go to the next application and I'll come back to you. How's that? All right. Okay. In which case, I'd like to go to number 12, which is 22 Firwood Crescent. I'm looking for Mr. Donkin. Evening.
Hi.
Okay, so before we get started, little administrative matter here. Because we don't have the stat decks, I've got to read this to you and I need you to respond.
Mr. Armstrong can do that. He's the owner and put the sign up.
Okay, so Mr. Armstrong, if you can take yourself off mute, please.
Yep, can you hear me?
All right. Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on the subject property to which the application applies, that it was posted for the number of days that are prescribed by the Planning Act before the hearing, and that the sign was at all times clearly visible and legible? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I affirm that for sure.
All right, thank you. All right then, so Mr. Duncan, are you going to be answering questions then?
Yes.
You are. Okay. That said, we don't need a presentation at this particular point in time. I just want to make sure there's no housekeeping matters on your application either. I don't see any. So with that, then I'm going to open it directly to the members of the committee to ask questions. Anyone? Nope, nobody's got questions on this. Yes, Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question about the use of the land to the rear. It looks like it's probably a park block. Am I mistaken? Is that a park block?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to go to, I have no one registered to speak to this application, but I'm going to go out to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the committee on this application, whether your interest is in support or in opposition to the application? So now's your chance. We'll give you a few moments. And I'm not seeing anyone come forward. So with that then, committee, I think we can go to a decision at this point. All those in favor of the application? All right, for the record, Mr. Duncan, Mr. Armstrong, the application is unanimously approved. I don't see any other items that we need to discuss.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Good luck. Okay, we're back to Mr. Falsetto. Sorry. Mr. Falsetto. Mr. Falsetto, any luck with the microphone? Okay, we do see a number coming up. Madam Coordinator, is there, what needs to happen here for us to hear Mr. Falsetto?
So he needs to press *6 on his phone to unmute himself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, yes.
I apologize profusely.
No issues at all. No issues at all. It happens. So I am going to read to you though the stat deck requirement, and then I need you to respond. So do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted first at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that the sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I affirm that to be true.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I believe there's a very minor housekeeping matter on this application that we need to just to undertake, and I just need you to confirm. So under minor variance A, we are going to strike the words depth, lot width from the description. And with that, then I think we have a correct reading, and that means that the notice will be amended in that way. Are you, can you confirm support for that?
I can confirm it.
All right, thank you. Okay, we don't need a presentation, so I'm going to open it up to the members of the committee. Is there anyone who has any questions for Mr. Falsetto? Okay, I'm not seeing any questions from members. I'm just going to go and see if we've got anybody from the public on for this. No, I have no one registered to speak on this item, so I'm going to open it up to the public at this point. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on the application? All right, I'm not seeing any. So with that, committee, then we can go to a vote. All those in favor of the application? All right, for the record, Mr. Falsetto, your application is unique. I don't believe there are any additional comments that we need to talk about other than Hydro Ottawa, who have mentioned that modifications are not to affect the hydroelectric meter. You've looked at those comments? Mr. Falsetto?
No, no question.
All right, okay. So with that, your application is approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good evening.
Good evening. All right, so we have two last applications to deal with this evening. I'm going to start with 151, 149 Rothsay Drive, looking for the agent, I believe is Ms. Debicka.
Hi there.
Good evening. So you are the owner of the property?
Yes, I'm the owner. My name is Anishka, and I have alongside me today my fiance Meslin, just to help with answering any questions if I'm not able to answer anything.
All right. So we're going to require a presentation from you this evening. Yep. So I just need, I think, I don't believe I have done this yet, is the stat declaration. So I guess I'm going to direct this to you, if that's all right, Ms. Debicka, and I'll need you to respond. So do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that the sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
Yes, I affirm that to be true. And swear for that to be true.
Okay, thank you. All right, so with that, we're going to let you provide us with your presentation, please.
Okay. Okay, so good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. So As was mentioned, my name is Anishka Dibika. I am the property owner and will be the presenter this evening. So the purpose of my application is to request approval for demolishing the existing dwelling at 151 Rothesay, subdividing the property into 2 separate parcels of land and constructing a new 2-story semi-detached dwelling. So on the next slide, I have the release that are required for this to occur. So in order to do so, I am requesting a relief for a reduced lot width of 8.38 meters, whereas bylaw requires a minimum of 9 meters. So I am just missing a difference of 62 centimeters. And I'm also requesting a reduced lot area of 255.7 meters squared, whereas bylaw requires a minimum of 270 meters squared, so that leaves me with a difference of 14.3 square meters. So on my next slide, I have the proposed elevation drawings. So as you can see here, I have a 2-story semi-detached dwelling with a flat roof and a single car garage for each half. The exterior, I would like to have a mixture of stone, stucco, and maybe a wood paneling, just so that the exterior finishes fit the design of the other dwellings in the area. Each half will have a width of 23 feet and 6 inches, a depth of 50 feet, and a height of 23 feet. The structure itself meets all setback requirements as well as height requirements. I also designed this house with the 2 garages on the outside in mind to increase the soft space in front of the home, because there is quite a large tree in front of the home, which I would like to preserve as much as possible, because it is a mature tree and I would like to keep it in the area. So I also made the house a little bit wider to meet the minimum side yard requirements, because the farther apart the driveways are, the more soft space I have in the middle for the tree. So after receiving some comments and feedback from planners, there was some concern that maybe the flat roof might not fit the area or the design of the houses of the area, and I'll address those again later on the slide. But I am also providing, just for reference, on the next slide is an image of the exact same home. It's the same layout, and the minor variances requested for this are exactly the same. So the only thing different in this image is just a peaked roof, just to show that I am more than willing to do a different roof style if the committee prefers that. In this case, only my height would increase to approximately 31 feet, but that still is within the 11-meter maximum requirement for that zoning. So on the next 2 slides, I just gathered some images from Google Maps just to showcase the different styles of homes in the area. So as you can see on the left side, there is a 2-story semi-detached dwelling. This style is very common in the area. Besides that picture, I'm showing that some of the homes in the area have detached garages, some have attached garages, and some have no garages. So in my plan, I am proposing to have a garage, for a 1-car garage, just to allow for the owner to be able to park their car in the garage. And across the street from 151 Rothesay, if there are any concerns with the flat roof design in my initial, in my proposal, I just would like to showcase that there are semi-detached dwellings with mixed roof styles. So half of the semi-detached shows a peaked roof, and the other half shows a completely flat roof, but slanted. So I just wanted to show that there is that style within the neighborhood. And on the last slide also is just a few more images of the different homes in the area. There are single homes with narrower lot widths but attached garages, as well as semi-detached homes with built attached garages. So with that being said, thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to provide any additional comments or clarifications to anyone that has additional questions.
All right, thank you for that. I'm going to open it up to the members of the panel. Any questions from anyone? I'm not seeing, oh, Ms. Markovich.
Yes, thank you. I just had a quick question about sort of consultation with the community and neighbors and sort of what that looked like and if that had any bearing on your proposal here today.
I did have some comments from neighbors, specifically the neighbor across the street who I believe will be present on the call later today. And I've also had comments from neighbors in the back to the rear of my property. They were concerned with the privacy with having a higher building. However, I just wanted to address that the lots, this 147 Rothesay do have very tall hedges, as well as the mature trees in the area. In the summer, it's very green and covered. So that lowers the privacy risk for anybody from the second service dwelling seeing in the backyard. And also, as I'm sure that my neighbor at 150 Rothesay will be expressing shortly, I think he just had like a general concern with the project itself, which I do understand where he is coming from because he has been a resident in the area since it was built. However, I would just like to stress that I would like to live in one of the halves of the semi, and if I can have the opportunity to build a second half to allow another family to live in the area, that's my main goal, because it is a really awesome, like it's a nice area. So I would like to have the opportunity to bring another family to the area.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions, Mr. Kendall?
I had a question for Mr. Hodgins. I think in this case, I think we saw in the planning report some comments about the styling and the roof line and that. Can you talk through the rationale for why that was important for this application, but we haven't necessarily seen it on similar ones elsewhere?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think in this case, it was important to note that there's a fairly consistent built form within the neighborhood, and taking a look at the official plan policies on compatibility, we believe that the design could be improved. I believe we have noted it similarly on other files, but especially in this case, there were some specific features such as improving soft landscaping, the built form materials, some articulations in the facade, and the peaked roof were just notable things that we thought could better reflect the desirable characteristics of this neighborhood. So they were brought to the committee's attention in staff's report.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Ms. Willis.
Question for staff as well is whether or not the design with the pitched roof that's being shown as an alternative would change your opinion of the appropriateness of the design of the unit, Mr. Hodgins?
Thank you for the question. I think the peaked roof certainly helps from a design perspective. However, I think that the driveway size and the soft landscaping could still be improved. There could still be some further articulations in the facade, given the reduced lot width to better reflect the desirable characteristics of the area. So the answer is yes, that I think the peaked roof is an improvement. However, I think there's still a little bit of room for further improvement to reflect the characteristics of the neighborhood.
Thank you. And just one other question. The applicant was talking about a mature tree in the front yard, and I might have missed it, but was a tree information report required as part of this application?
Yes, thank you. It was required. We did not have it originally for the circulation, but the applicant was able to provide us one over the weekend, which myself and Nancy Young were able to review. We have provided some additional conditions to the committee this morning, just to reflect that we do believe, based on TAR, the tree can be retained, but we would also like to condition it to ensure it is retained in accordance with that TAR.
Thank you.
All right, additional questions from anyone? Okay. All right, I think we're going to go to our speaker next. I do have someone, and I believe Mr. Struck. Please forgive me. Strutek, did I get that right? Still on mute, Mr. Strutek. Here.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Yes, we can. We can.
Okay, I'm a long-time resident of 150 Rotese. I'm on this street since 1974, and I'm probably only original owner of home ownership make easy. At that time, the developers, they develop not just houses, they develop street. So all streets look nice. Now the developers, they design nice houses, but it's row houses. And I have to say, other thing is lots of older people here, they would oppose this project. They would be at meeting, but they are not very comfortable with this new technology. I'm very lucky and fortunate I have able son. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here probably too. He helped me set it up. And so new owners here of 151 mentioned that they consult neighbors. That's not correct. I was only guy who stopped because I felt bad. New couple there and they don't see anybody. So I went and see them. They were very nice, but I didn't say I agree. I said, I disagree. I don't like it. That was all my conversation. And we cannot talk about garbage mass, so I skip it. And I just want to say something about safe feature. This road, Rotese is a very busy road, buses coming both sides, and now it's actually shortcut between Eagleson and Terry Fox Drive. Lots of people take shortcut. And I worry about safety issue. Where do you park car when we will have less space? And with these two new houses, we will have probably 4 extra car. And I worry about, I have lots of grandchildren. I worry about my grandchildren around. And I worry about other children too. It's two dwelling, more cars. And when it's snowstorm, I'm talking to you right now, but if it's snowstorm and you would be here, it's a nightmare. We have to park outside because contractors come clean up our driveway and it won't be any place. And it's a very safe safety issue. I worry because so many cars, so many buses, and if something happen and fire truck come here, they won't have any place to go. And I have to tell you some interesting things. If this house is built like it is, it won't fit this neighborhood. This street, for me, it has some history. This street has some zik. And I tell you one interesting thing that happened because I live here so long. This part of Canada is not heritage place like Peggy Co in Nova Scotia or Parliament here, but it's old part of Canada. These houses won't be built again. They won't be replicated. One day it will be here. And it was designed by master father of Canada, Mr. Bill Teron. Okay, Mr. Bill Teron designed Old Canada, Beaverbrook, and his idea was houses, people, and nature live in harmony. And when he went out from business, construction business, he became chairman of Ontario Mortgage Corporation, and he started this project Home Ownership Make Easy. I was a young guy, and he made this easy for many young families that they could afford house. So when these houses were finished, 1974, Bill Teron himself walked around here and he talked to us and he asked, how do you like it? And we said, yeah, we like it. It was only house. It wasn't any backyard. It wasn't any landscaping front and back. And he said, well, when you guys plant some few trees front and few trees back in backyard, it will be like Beaverbrook. And he laughed. And then he showed another side of road where is this house we talk about. It was any house. It was just grass. And he said, you know what? This other site will be built by, I think it was McDonald Construction Company. And he said, I already talked to them and I want to make sure that this street is nice street. Okay. So that was my memory of this. That's why I love this life here. My whole family, my all children were born here, and now I have 11 grandchildren. They come, they cannot come now because of this virus, but when they come, they are happy. And I would be really worried about so many cars, so much construction. Now I have one question, last question. If this project go on and something go wrong, where do I go? This committee won't be here in a few years. These people who build house, they will sell the house. It will be new owners. I will go to City Hall. Nobody will listen me. Only a doorman in City Hall will listen me. And then when it's some really serious problem arise and you get lawyers, where do you jump? You don't have any lead to go. So I tell you, I don't like change the street. I like it, and many people who live on this street like it. And it's just unfortunate because lots of old people live on the street and they not able to go on Zoom. So thank you very much for having me on Zoom. Sorry, I'm not smooth like you are. Sorry, I'm not smooth like some other people, but I just told you what I know and how I feel about. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Strutek, thank you so much for your presentation. First off, I am so impressed with the background information you have on the history of development in the Canada area. I obviously, it's very clear that you've been around for a long time and your memory is excellent because a lot of those names were in fact the people who were involved in development back then. And I think Mr. White can back me up on this. He may have some things to say as well. So I also can understand some of the issues that you're having. Yes, these are some of the concerns that we hear from residents when it comes to intensification. Do you have a question for you though?
Yes.
In terms of that roof so right now the proposal is for a flat roof, but the owner applicant has suggested that they would be willing to look at a pitched roof. Does that make it a little bit better for you?
No, I'm just old fashioned. Is it? I'm just old fashioned. I just like this. The style is here. Can you imagine? I have my son other son living in Halifax. I've been there so many times, and we visit Peggy Cove. So many tourists go there. Can you imagine? People live in old houses there. They don't allow them make a new modern house, even washroom, everything calls as is it. And I think one day, I don't know, we won't be here. They will show, look at this part, Canada, they built it and they didn't have garage, they this, and people were happy.
All right. Any questions from anyone else from Mr. Strutek? No? Anyway, thank you for joining us. Do truly appreciate your participation with us this evening.
Thank you. I could meet some stuff from City Hall, and now I know a little more how it works. And thanks for listening to me.
Excellent, and I'm glad you were able to get some help with the technology. It's always great to see that happen. So, okay, I'm going to I don't have anyone else on my list who wanted to speak to the committee, but I'm going to open it up to anyone else who might want to come forward and either support the application or raise some concerns. Now's your chance. All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward, so I think the public portion then of this, these two applications can be closed. So committee, we can go to a decision on both the consent and the minor variance, but I'd just like for the record, and Mr. Hodgins, you can correct me here, so we're going to add a new condition, number 10, to the application. It's about entering into an agreement with the city at the expense of the owner and to the satisfaction of general manager, planning, infrastructure, and economic development department, or by his or her designate to address the following. And what we have here is a list including things like the tree information report prepared by an arborist, agree that the location of the proposed structures, such as the driveways, etc., are located on the grading plan. So there's a number of varying aspects. In fact, I see 4 sub-points here. I do want to speak with the owners. Ms. Debicka, have you seen this this proposed additional 10th condition to the application?
If the 10th condition that you're speaking to is in regards to the tree, then yes, I saw the email that Cameron sent to me today.
All right, okay. You've had a chance to read through it?
Yes.
And have you any questions about it?
Nope, I don't think so right now.
All right, okay. Well then, Mr. Hodges, just correct me here if I go off the rails, but I think for the record, we're adding this condition to your list of conditions to the consent application.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Okay, committee, there's a lot here. Does anyone have any additional questions or items that they would like to explore on either the consent application or the minor variance? Yes, Ms. Wills, go ahead, please.
Just on the debate about whether it's to be a flat roof or a pitched roof, I'm sort of on, I think the flat roof is fine, but if the applicant sees fit to make it pitched and that makes the city staff happier, I'm fine with that, but I'm also okay with the design as originally submitted.
Okay, that's an important point, Ms. Willis, because we'll have to make it clear because it will be tied to plans. So, all right, Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just a little bit concerned here. Are we intending on applying a design condition here? In other words, tying this to the elevation drawings that have been submitted? Because in fact, we're only dealing with variances with respect to lot width and lot area. It's not, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we're in the habit of requiring design conditions when we're only dealing with the configuration of the lot itself.
Right, Mr. White, but I think in this case, because we've talked a lot about the design merits, regardless, and it comes out of staff's comments about the overall compatibility, and in the fact that the owners have in fact offered to us an option, I think it's fair game if we would like to in fact make a call one way or the other. I think that's I think it's been part of the discussions all along. It may not have been part of the application originally, but we certainly have had that additional information and evidence tonight. So it's for us to do what we want, I think.
Thank you.
All right. So those in preference for the peaked roof over the flat roof, can I just see a show of hands from the panel members? Nobody cares one way or the other. I prefer the peak, just for the record then. I prefer the peak over it. It just seemed to me from the evidence that we saw that it does fit in a little bit better than the flat roof. But so I seem to be alone in that though. So I think we're just going to stick with the original plans and go with those. And I think that's where.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Madam Chair, if I could. if we tie the elevation to the decision, that precludes, correct me if I'm wrong, but that will preclude the ability for the applicant to modify the plan in accordance with maybe some design discussions that might be had in the future with members of the planning staff and the building division. And that's why I'm concerned that maybe we shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Mr. White. I think if we had chosen to actually support the peaked roof, now we do want to tie it to the elevations, but we're not going in that direction. So the reality is we don't have to tie it to anything other than the site plan itself, which is the lot width and lot. So I would agree with you on that. I think we'll just, we won't worry about tying it to anything other than the site plan at this point. All right, any other comments? Thoughts? Going to a vote?
I have a question. I'm sorry if I'm able to speak right now.
Yes, you can.
So just on the topic of the roof, so just by getting the comments and feedback from planners, if my proposal is approved and I do decide to do the peaked roof, is that something that would be allowed, or is that something that would require a different application process?
No, that's exactly what we were talking about. We want to make sure not to tie any approvals to the elevations, which gives you the flexibility.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, excellent. All right, members, all those in favor of the consent application? All right, the consent application is unanimously granted. All those in favor of the minor variance? All right, and the minor variance applications is also unanimously granted. And that said, there are now 10 conditions to this approval for consent. Any questions? Do we need to discuss any of that? Or we're good? Just Rebecca?
No questions.
All right, okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure we didn't leave any loose ends. Looks good. So good luck with the first step.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
You too.
Okay, folks, that brings us to our last application. Last but not least, 2691 Violet Street. We're looking for Mr. Gavran.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Gavran, can you put your video on, please?
Yes, one moment. There we go.
Good evening.
Good evening, good evening. Working late, I see.
This is early for us. This is not bad at all. So, okay, I'm going to need to read this because there is no statutory declaration in your file. So just respond when I'm done, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted first on the subject property to which the application applies, that it was posted for the prescribed number of days under the Planning Act and before the hearing, and that the sign was at all times clearly visible and legible during the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, I'm just going to have a look to see if there's any housekeeping items on your notice, and I don't see anything. Yeah, so with that, we're going to ask you to give us a brief presentation, please.
Yes, so the project is the clients bought this old property on Violet Street. I believe you got the images of the existing, which is really in terrible condition and an eyesore to the community. I've been working in Ottawa on a few similar projects. So the client seeing that there's a similar project on his street, saw my website, saw that I do these kind of designs and contacted me to build something that's feasible and good for the community. So we looked at the building design of the neighborhood and the materials used and what we could do differently, but at the same time, an interesting design that we could develop. So we came with something like this that offers still good quality of interior living, but we do have some exterior spaces in front and in the back of the building. The design mimics, like I said, the design on the street, which is stucco materials, stone materials, pretty squared up shapes, a sloped roof. So that's basically it. I worked with the city on, like I said, on a number of these projects, so I know the qualifications that we needed to follow the design criteria. I sent a letter to the neighborhood on which I received, I believe we saw some negative feedback, but at the same time, some positive feedback, and even some neighbors wanting to buy one of the properties for themselves, or if not, if I could work with them on a similar project. Again, those are all neighbors on that street, but we did see some negative feedback as in height of the building. Now, unfortunately, we cannot do a bungalow, so this is the smallest, most compact shape that I can come up with that's budget friendly, but economical in terms of the footprint that we're taking on the site as well. I did see that there's going to be some drainage issue, which we will solve during the landscaping phase of the construction. And that would be, I don't know if you need more details than that.
All right. I'm going to open it up to the committee members to see whether or not they have any questions on this application. Anyone? Okay, well, if that's the case, then I do have someone registered to speak this evening on this application. And I believe I'm looking for Ms. Rivier. Marlene Rivier or Rivière?
Yes, that's me.
Hello. You can go ahead anytime you'd like.
Okay. You know, I recognize that intensification is, you know, an important concept, and it's certainly one that I'm not opposed to. But what we've had on our street is a number of very large structures, and they're quite imposing. And for me, this structure so close to my home next door, you know, there is going to be for me a loss of privacy, a loss of sunlight. I'm an avid gardener. That's important to me. But the larger issue is the one of drainage. There have been drainage problems along the street. And not just necessarily at the lower elevations. And I'm not an engineer, so I can't explain that. But we have large pooling of water on the north side of the street with each, you know, melt and heavy storms. In fact, a neighbor 2 properties over has had to purchase a pump to pump the water into the sewer so that their driveway is passable. I am concerned about drainage from the property onto mine because of the increase in the footprint on the property strikes me as providing less capacity for that property to absorb runoff and to absorb stormwater and this kind of thing. And we're, you know, I mean, I already in the spring, you know, my yard is you know, wet and spongy, which I expect, but I am concerned about it becoming a pool and that my use of my yard will be impacted by that. And I don't know what kinds of assurances I can be given that, you know, the drainage will be dealt with. I know Mr. Gavran has said that he has given some thought to that. But I don't know what that would consist of and what recourse I would have, you know, to assure that my property is not adversely impacted in terms of the drainage.
I think I can help with that. In fact, it's a building permit requirement. So at the time that anyone goes in with a building permit, it's not just about the building, it's also about the grading and drainage on the property, including post-development flows. So all of that is looked at by the city's building division at the time that they're looking at the approval of a building permit. So hopefully that's your recourse. If there's an issue, then it's whether or not there was an approval that may not have, shouldn't have been given for whatever reason, if there was a problem with it. So you can ask questions and certainly find out why there might be an additional issue, and if in fact you find that the pooling in your backyard is worse than it was before the development.
Because there's the most recent, we've had, this will be the 5th such project on the street, which is only a block long. And the last one, again, the neighbor to the west had quite a bit of flooding in the spring. And, I'm really concerned about having to deal with that, that it becomes my issue to have it rectified, to have it corrected, to deal with any damage that might be forthcoming due to problems that might arise.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a bit of a cumulative impact that's going on because of the development, and we've seen that in other neighborhoods as well. Normally means that there's some deficiencies in stormwater management in the area. What we've proposed that people do is approach your counselor, your ward counselor, and maybe have a discussion about that. Mr. White, did you want to offer some comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if staff can comment on the controls that are applied at the time of building permit with respect to grade control and drainage, the technical issues that are addressed as part of that process.
Certainly. Ms. Ramirez, go ahead, please.
Madam Chair, at building permit stage, there's a detailed review of the grading and drainage plan. And one of the things that they look for is that water is not going onto adjacent properties. It's not permitted. The site alteration bylaw doesn't permit it. And so that is the stage where that detailed review takes place.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ramirez. Okay, but I guess, the bigger question here, I think, that I heard from this Riviere is, in fact, this cumulative issue with regards to stormwater management in the area. And that is, I think I said before, is more of a ward counselor type of issue to start there and have some discussions about what they might be able to do to have a look in the area to see whether or not there's any improvements that they can undertake. So I'm not familiar with the circumstances in your neighborhood specifically, but it's always a good course of action. Any other questions for Ms. Riviere? All right, I am going to make a call to see if there's anyone else in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this application. And I'm not seeing anybody come forward at this point. So committee members, any final thoughts, questions before we go to a vote? All right, okay, well, I think with that then, all those in favor of the application? All right, okay, so the application is granted unanimously. With that, I don't believe there's anything additional that we need to address. Mr. Gavran, any questions from your end?
No, that would be all. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
All right, thank you so much. Perfect. And that, folks, wraps up our agenda items for this evening. I do need a motion to adjourn. Who wants to move? Ms. Willis, seconded by Ms. Markovich. And with that, we are adjourned for the evening. Thank you, everyone. It was a great meeting. We've had just wonderful meetings over the last few months. I think we've got this down to a science. I'm really impressed. So thanks to committee staff.